All right. Now, once you understand the power of these documents and understand how to apply and balance the books, you can become toxic to these people. You really can. Down in the Panhandle of Florida, I used to have a sawmill. I had a log truck, I had a crane truck, and I had several other commercial trailers and stuff like that down in the Panhandle of Florida. For 2.5 years, I drove those right down the main highway without even having a tag on them. And sometimes the officers would ask me about it. They stopped me a time or two and asked me questions. And after they talked to me for a couple of minutes, they decided that it was probably not a good thing to stop me and give me a ticket. Because every time that they gave me a ticket, I ended up costing the court money. I called it clogging the toilet of justice. And we would go and we would make them go back and forth and spend lots of money to try to collect the $200 ticket. Now, we'd take it all the way to a trial by jury. We'd force them to do it. And then just before they'd get to that phase, they'd usually dismiss. But we've tied the court up for hours and hours, days, over a little old traffic ticket. While they were trying to collect that revenue from everybody else, we would clog the courts up, so they couldn't collect the revenue. And we enjoyed doing that. It got where we were pretty good at it too. So it got to the point where when they would see us, one day I had a buddy of mine, Sam, he was a retired truck driver, and I told him, I said, Sam, I want you to drive my crane. It's big. This is a big 46,000-pound crane truck. Big, humongous thing. Got a 70-foot hydraulic boom on it. And I told him, I want you to drive it from this town to the next town over there in the Panhandle, which is it's 25, 30 miles. And so the only way to go is right down the main highway that's patrolled by Highway Patrol and DOT and deputies constantly. And he said, man, I'm going to get a ticket and get thrown in jail for driving this thing without a tag on it. I said, no, don't worry about it. I'm following behind you. You won't have a problem. So we got over there about halfway, and the thing started skipping a little bit. We had to pick up some water in our fuel, and I had to stop on the side of the road, pull off to the side of the road there, and change the fuel filter. And so a deputy pulls up. His name was Rhodes. And I was up there changing the fuel filter so we could get on down the road. And Officer Rhodes, he pulls up and he stops and he gets out and he comes in and he looked back there and didn't have a tag. And so he walks up to the front of the crane, and Sam is sitting there. I was changing the fuel filter right behind the cab there, and I could hear him saying, I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to go to jail. Sitting there holding the steering wheel like that, saying that over and over again. I said, relax, Sam. It's all right. And he said, I'm going to go to jail. And so Officer Rhodes walked up there and turned around and he saw me change. I come out from where I was at and said, can I help you, officer? He said, well, Mr. Turner, he said, I didn't realize that was you. He says, is there anything I can do to help you? I said, no. I said, I'm just changing the fuel filter. We'll be on our way in just a minute. He said, all right, if you need anything, he said, can I get you anything? Or call somebody to help you or whatever. He said, anything I can do, just let me know. And Sam was sitting there. He didn't know what to do. He was still holding on that steering wheel. And he left and he said, the guy got in his car, drove off. He said, what have you got on him? I said, nothing, Sam. I said, they know that it's just not good business to stop me because I'm going to tie them up and cost them money. I said, that's the way you become toxic. When they can't make a profit, they'll go get easier fish. Now, we'll show you tomorrow about foreclosures and the power of dealing with these foreclosures. And when you understand the rules of engagement and you can get this thing into the proper venue, and I'm going to show you how to do that, you can't be beat in a foreclosure because foreclosures are fraudulent. Almost every single one is fraudulent. Every one is fraudulent. And we're going to show you about that tomorrow, and that's when we're going to show you how to do the enforcement in the hammer. You're going to like the hammer. Now, on this particular agreement, remember I told you it's important to define what you want to do, your terms and all the agreement, you define everything. Now, we've defined billing costs. probably find this is pretty interesting, some of it. It's good reading. If you have time, you'll probably enjoy this document. Some of the things I put in there, such as unfounded accusations by officers of the court. How many times have people been falsely accused of something and the court had no evidence? And they go through and run them through the process and try to convict them, and they don't because they don't have the evidence. But yet they've tied these people's times up, thrown them in jail, cost them money, cost them aggravation and time. Well, we put these things in our contract. Now, this is a contract, by the way, in Admiralty. So it's enforceable. Why is it enforceable? Why is this contract enforceable?
Silent acquiescence.
Acquiescence is the key. They won't respond to this. I promise they can't. Because to respond to it, you've got to give me documented evidence in writing that you can rebut it. Other than that, it stands. You know how many of these I've seen rebutted? There are thousands of these filed across the country right now. I don't know how many thousands, maybe tens of thousands. I don't know. The guy that developed this, he was having problems with his Patriot group up in Michigan. And he did these last couple of documents that we went over, and he filed them. He got all of his guys to file them. They were being harassed, stopped and pulled over, thrown in jail, and harassed. Their houses being raided and all kinds of stuff because they had upset the local sheriff's department. So they filed these documents, and all of a sudden it all stopped. What about 3 or 4 months they didn't have anybody stop? So his curiosity got the best of him. He said, I've got to go find out what's going on. So he goes down to the sheriff's department and said, I want to talk to the sheriff. He comes out, and he saw it was him, and he said, I can't talk to you anymore. And he said, well, I just want to know. He said, I can't talk to you anymore. He said, I don't have anything to say to you. Go leave. Leave me alone. That's the power that these things have when you know how to apply enforcement too. But you'll be amused at some of the things. One of the things I really like in here, let me see if I can find it right quick. There it is. Under 15, disrespect by a judge or officer of the court. It's $2 million per occurrence per officer or agent involved. And by the way, that is in silver, by the way. So you'll know. Okay. So Randy, when you get this guy, you're going to have quite a claim.
You just gave me $2 million.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a bunch of them in here. I got a bunch of them. Incarceration for civil or criminal contempt without lawful documented and law valid reason. How about that? How many of y'all have faced that before?
I found this 3 weeks before they arrested me. Got him.
Unnecessary restraint, assault and battery with a weapon, assault and battery without a weapon, denial or abuse of due process, obstruction of justice, reckless endangerment, counterfeiting statute, staple securities instruments. That's the one. Clyde, have you filed the suit on that one? The suit on that one yet? They went into court and brought 3 copies of your documents. Oh, you hadn't done it? You need to do that because they brought in 3 copies of his notice and demand to court, and it's $2 million per copy because they didn't have his written permission to copy them.
Is this what you did for the judge we got?
I've seen 3 judges do that. Yes. Yeah, we had an incident down there in Dothan, Alabama. My buddy Monty, the guy that I told y'all got beat up and thrown in jail for 18 days. We filed all his documents in that case, and we walked in there. And some of you guys might know Lewis Moore. He lives up here around this area. You don't know Lewis? Lewis was with me that day. It was funny. We walked in there, and the judge was looking through these documents, and we walked through the door. Me and Lewis and a couple of other guys in my group walked in the door, and that judge sat straight up just like this. And I punched him. I said it loud enough they could hear it. I said, the pucker factor just went up. And then I gave that old judge a mean look, and I went and sat down right in front of him. And every time they'd do something wrong, I would say, I'd go like that and shake my head at him like that. And we intimidated the starch out of that judge. So they went through the little hearing. Oh, we had some fun with that one. He's almost a retirement, and he don't want to mess that up. And he knows I just messed him up. Because right now we have a $36.8 billion claim against him and two of his cronies. And it's perfected, and now we're going for collections. We're doing the maritime liens on it. Supposed to be doing them last week, but I don't know if they finished them. But these guys are in real trouble because we're going to come after their claims, and we're going to get their bonds because they violated the law in so many ways. We warned them, they refused. I went down there to the sheriff's department. When they arrested my buddy. Well, they arrested him that afternoon. I didn't know it till that night, so the next morning I went down. I told the sheriff, I said, you need to release Monty from jail. And he said, I'm not going to release him. I said, Sheriff, you're about to open a can of worms that you're not going to be able to put the lid back on. I said, and I don't think you want to do that. He said, and this is a quote, he said, you people need to get the hell out of my country. That's exactly what he said. I said, I think you got things mixed up, Sheriff. I said, you're in our country. You need to go on and move yourself up to Washington where you claim you're from. I said, because you're a U.S. citizen. Go home. And, of course, he and I had a few words, and I spent several radio shows down there talking about Hitler Hughes and how his name is Andy Hughes, the sheriff is. I call him Hitler Hughes. And how he had violated the man's rights and how we were going to take him apart, and we are. We're going to take him apart. We're going to take him out of office. He's going to be retired in disgrace, and we're going to own his house. And I'm going to take extreme pleasure in handing him a writ of execution to go collect his own house. I'm going to do that because he's going to have to enforce it. And if he doesn't, I'll get U.S. Marshals to do it. Doesn't matter to me which way we do it. And then we own everything he's got. We'll soon when we get the liens in place. But these are very powerful tools. Don't play with these things. Make sure you've got a legitimate claim and don't use it. I want you to understand, don't use this for vengeance. Use it for justice. Justice is the right motive, not for vengeance. We don't want revenge on these people, but we want the books balanced. There's nothing wrong with balancing the books. When they step out of line, it is our duty and our obligation to make sure they are brought back in line and abide by the law. Because if you don't, what do you end up with? You end up with anarchy. When the law doesn't matter anymore, and it's very soon coming in this country, it's already in place, where it doesn't seem to matter what the law says. When they trained me in law enforcement down in South Florida, the first thing they told me when I got out of the academy is, you forget what they taught you down there, this is the way we do it. That's the first thing they told me on first day on job. Forget what they taught you down there, we do it like this. I said, well, I thought they taught me the law. Well, that's not the way we do it. You do it the way we tell you. And I always ask too many questions, and I've had them give me many illegal orders. And I would tell the colonel, would you please give me that in writing? I'm not going to give you that in writing. I said, well, then I can't obey it. It's an illegal order. You better watch out who you work for. And I tell him, well, I don't work for you, Colonel. I said, you don't sign my paycheck. And and these people think that because they've got power and they can do anything they please without regard of the law, and they never think that anybody can do anything to them. That particular colonel got busted to a CO1 as a result of firing me. And he had to go work for all those people that he stepped on all those years. So I imagine he's having a good time also. But after almost 20 years in the system, he got busted down to an entry-level position. From a bird colonel to an entry-level position is not somewhere that you want to be if you've stepped on other people in the system. So I imagine he had an interest in the rest of his career. Now, as I told you earlier, definitions are important. Now, what do you think the disrespect by officer of the court would be? What do you think the definition of that would be? Anything that makes me feel uncomfortable. It's in the definitions. Makes me feel fear or threatened. Okay, and you need to read this document. This is a great document, it really is. Powerful document. Okay. Now, we have problem with agents, these commercial agents out here, especially clerks of court, that don't think they have to file documents. Well, not filing a document on the public record for a member of the public is called concealment under federal law. It says pursuant, and this is a quote right out of the chapter, pursuant to Title 18, United States Code, Chapter 101, subsection 2071B, whoever, having the custody of any such record, proceeding, map, book, document, paper, or other thing, willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and shall be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. You think that could be a serious offense for a clerk? Or maybe what about a county attorney that makes a legal determination that you can't file your documents? Does he have the right to violate federal law that says he can't conceal documents? I'm a member of the public. I'm a tax-paying member of the public. What law says that they have the right to not file, to refuse to file my documents? Where is the law? Where do they have the right? Does a clerk have the right to make that legal determination, Randy? Not at all. No, they don't have it. Now, why aren't you guys going there and filing criminal suits against these clerks? Because they're not filing documents. The law says they can't conceal your documents. They can't conceal them. Now, I'll promise you one thing. You might not get the prosecution, but if about half a dozen of you guys would go down there to try to file a document with a clerk that you know is going to refuse, and about 6 of y'all are down there to do affidavits for them, and you take your affidavits and you do a verified affidavit of criminal complaint, and you go down to the sheriff's department and you file a complaint against this clerk, you might not get a prosecution, but I'll guarantee you'll get some cooperation. I promise you, when you walk in there again, they won't refuse. They'll file a dirty piece of toilet paper if you ask them to. Because they're not going to go there and lose that job and go to prison. I don't know if you realize it or not, but clerks have a very nice job. They make a lot of money. Yes, sir. Pull it all the way.
There we go.
That's for the straw man or just for the free man?
This is for the real man. This document.
For the real
This man defines who the straw man and real man are, and lets them know what the rights of the real man are.
Yeah, because when you say I'm a taxpayer, that's a straw man. It's a taxpayer.
No, I can pay taxes if I want to.
Okay.
I pay all kinds of taxes. I pay road taxes. I pay property taxes.
As a free man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I pay them if I
Okay.
want to, Ken.
You know.
Just leave it on. Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, I don't know what about in Texas, but in Oklahoma they have this big writing on the wall when you go file a paper about sham articles or sham papers.
Mm-hmm.
And my clerk, every time she looks at mine, I don't know about you, I got to let my lawyer look at this.
Good. Let's get the lawyer, too.
Okay, but then it took 10, 15 days the last time I got anything before they let me file it. But then I went to a court clerk, and I'm being charged with a felony. because I antagonized the court clerk. So this is where I'm at fighting right now.
So you got
Think-
a court case going on?
Not yet, but I mean, well, I filed criminal
Maybe
charges.
they will.
Yeah.
That's a present.
Oh. Say that again, I didn't hear.
And maybe they'll charge you because that would be a present.
Okay, well,
If they do, how much do you want to make on that case?
as much as, no. I just want to go out and show
Well,
them.
the
is
clerk's
what-
bond's worth about $50 million.
Okay.
Just let you know.
Well, I
That's
want
how
to
much
do
the
whatever
one
I
I got
can.
was. It's $50 million. I got a copy of the bond the other day. And I filed claims against it.
Okay, I'll have to learn more about that. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to show you how to take those presents and turn them into something nice. Not for them, but for you. Okay. But these guys don't have the right to deny filing your documents. They can't conceal their your documents. Okay. Let's see where there are 3 witnesses to sign this. Now, I'll tell you, this was for an either-or situation. There were places that people lived. It's 12 o'clock already? Where did the time go? Okay, I'll finish this document. We're almost finished. I put the 3 signatures on there for a reason. Because there were places people didn't have access to a notary. They lived out in Podunk somewhere. Podunk, Oklahoma, where is that at? And they lived so far away from a notary that they asked if there was a better way. And I said, yeah, you can use 3 witnesses instead of a notary to certify the signature is correct. And so that's why we put that on. You can use both of them, or you can use it either or. Okay. This also includes the property list. We're not going to go through that. And it also has definitions, which I told you earlier is really important. The definitions are part of the agreement, and all that's in there. You might find some interesting reading. Now, how many of you have friends or have been raided by the Internal Revenue Service or one of these agencies, and they take your equipment and just destroy it or don't return it or what have you? Well, there's a provision in this little contract that if they are required under the terms of this contract to restore you exactly the way you were before they came. That means they've got to replace your equipment, any damaged equipment, with new equipment of like kind. They have to find it, purchase it, deliver it, set it up, restore all software and all supplies just as if they had never came. And if they don't, until they do that, the fine is $100,000 per day. Can you enforce that? You betcha. You sure can. It is a contract. They don't rebut it. It's a contract through acquiescence. These things are pretty powerful. Because you want to know there's a lot of provisions in here to protect you. If you get stopped by an officer and he detains you for an unreasonable amount of time, guess what? He owes you $2 million in silver, by the way. Pretty good claim. That's per officer or agent, and they're going to have 3 or 4 of them, so that's even better. So, and can you come after these? Yeah, absolutely. They invite you to court. Oh, I love it. Yes, sir.
Does that notice and demand go a non-pro tunk or just from
Yes.
when you put it in? Oh, it is.
Well, it says that, but I don't think you can enforce that's
Something prior to before
that's
it
kind
was.
of like a bill of attainder. You can't, or that's ex post facto. I don't think you can do that.
From the day you file it forward, then.
Yeah, from the day you file it forward, it is good, but I don't think you can do an ex post facto law or contract. Yeah, I don't think you could do that legally. Now, the one thing that it can do, though, is on a fraud case. There's no statute of limitations on fraud. You go back to day 1 on that. Okay? And you'll read the definitions. You'll find these are pretty interesting definitions. Okay, are there any questions about that document?
Tim, I just had one question real quick.
Okay, listen up.
Do any of these documents at all, do they put into effect a non-pro tunk or whatever that is, where it rescinds all signatures for every contract you've done before?
No, they do not.
No. Is there some way we
They
can do that?
reestablish a contract that you're putting in right now, but they don't rescind the signatures on all of your other contracts.
What way would we use to do that? Do you know?
You would have to send, case by case, a letter of rescission for every one that you've done.
So there's nothing you can file with the court to wipe out everything?
Not in my, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
I think you'll have to respond to all the agencies like the DMV and the voters registration office and the bank account. Also, you got all kind of bank accounts that are contracts. There's a whole host of contracts out there. Yes.
In number 8 there, it says that you will actually give a notice and demand to anybody who detains you.
Yes, sir.
Do you carry one of these with you? Have you ever given it to anybody?
Oh, yeah.
And what is the response?
I don't have to read that stuff. I said, thank you very much. You just volunteered.
And that was it.
Oh, well, I have actually had a one highway patrolman I tried to give it to, wouldn't take it, and I just left him standing on the side of the road and drove off.
What about for travel if you're in an airport and they detain you? Do you have this handy?
Well, you better pick your battles. Homeland Security does not have a sense of humor. They won't even let me take my Uzi on the flight with me anymore. Only kidding. Only for the record, I don't have an Uzi. That's just a joke. No, I wouldn't fight that battle unless you want to be detained and harassed and aggravated. I pick my battles. I pick the important stuff. Yeah. We need to. We get this question. We need to go to lunch.
Yeah. How do you add the Lieber number to the property list before filing it with the Register of Deeds?
You don't. You don't do that. You can't do it.
If I can add to
Go
what
ahead.
Tim is saying, when you're filing, a lot of people think that you take the UCC and the property list. We have removed that section at the top of the property list because it's many times over in your documents, so that the UCC with the property list does not have the Lieber numbers on it.
No.
Okay, so Lieber number is the book and record number at the county. If you file at the county, it is the book that the page number where they can get back to your filing.
You're
That's
right.
a
It
Lieber.
identifies where it's recorded.
Some counties call it a document number, Lieber number, instrument number. It's all the same. It's how you can get back to your particular filing at the county you filed your documents at.
It's good for notifications purposes. Okay, we're going to go to lunch, and let's be back at 1:30 and ready to go. We've got a lot to cover today. Get on the other stuff. Whew, I ate too much lunch. You have to watch this little Chinese buffet. It's hazardous to your health. You have to be careful. You may eat yourself into a coma. Be careful. That is very good food, though. Great place to eat. If you haven't tried it, you've missed out. The next form that we're going to talk about is simply a cover letter. We developed this because we had people that were so far from the Secretary of State's office that they asked us to devise a letter so they could mail in their active state to be apostilled. And that's what this letter was for. If you don't mail your active state in to be apostilled, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, what all I'm talking about for those of you that don't know. But if you're mailing the active state in, this is the cover letter you would use. But please take this off at the top that says, note if this... Please take our directions off and make it look as professional. You'd be surprised, honestly. I had a bunch of people sent their documents in from one town I won't mention. It's in the water, I know. But got to be something in the water. But they sent their documents in still highlighted in red. Where you make all the changes. Honestly. Well, you didn't tell us to do that. Okay. Does somebody have to tell you to breathe? It looks like some things would occur to folks, but they didn't then. Okay. But I still love them. I can't help it. Okay, and this is just simply, it's got the highlights here, you can see. Now where it says, anywhere in our documents it says BC registered mail number, that is the registered mail number from your birth certificate bond. And we do, I guess this would be a good time to do this right now while I'm thinking about it before I forget it. We also registered numbers on our property list. We put several registered mail numbers. 10 is 5, 10, whatever you want. You put, some people put 40 or 50. I don't think you'll need that many, but what we do is we register them on there and we label them as registered private bond / account numbers. That's the title I give to them. Registered private bond / account numbers. Okay, now we do some registered mail receipt numbers on there, and we also do bond numbers. And now bond numbers are, this is the way I do them. You can do them any way you like. This is just a suggestion. This is some of the ways that we do it. Now on bond numbers, we have three in particular. We have three types of bonds we need, or instruments that we need bond numbers for. The first is our indemnity bond, which is represented by IB. The second bond is an offset bond, which is represented by OB. And then we have a bonded promissory note, which is represented by BPN. Now what I like to do is take and put my initials, which would be JTT, in front of those. And then 0, well, no dash, no, don't do that. Okay, and this is just a suggestion. Don't need but one. That's all. That's right. That's correct. When we were doing bond numbers or researching bond numbers, I found that there's a common theme through a lot of numbers that are used for financial means, and they have 9 numbers or character combinations. It's common. I see 9 numbers show up a lot. Driver's license numbers, Social Security card numbers, and I see that's a common thread through a number of different numbers that you'll see. And so I think even bank account numbers, I think they are 9 numbers as well. And so when we decided to stick with the 9. You know, I don't like to reinvent the wheel if somebody's already done it for me. So what I did is that we just took our initials. The IB stands for Indemnity Bond 0001 through my initials IB 9999. That gives me a range of numbers of 9,999 numbers. That's a lot of numbers. If you write more than that, you're greedy. Okay. Now, you'll notice that down here, the BPN, we did the same with OB, and down here where it's the BPN, you see there's only a 001 and a 999. That's because we had an extra character here, a letter. And so we kept in step with the 9-number process because I found it was common and works for me. And that's an easy way to do it. Now, you can make up any set of numbers you want to make up. That's entirely up to you. They're your bonds. This is just a suggestion. You don't have to do it that way. But that's an easy way to do it. And I can look at that bond number and tell you exactly what kind of bond it is, just from the number, without even seeing the instrument, because it'll tell me if it's an indemnity bond, offset bond, or a bonded promissory note just simply by the number. And that gives me a little bit of information about it. Okay. And is everybody clear on all that?
If you don't have the middle name,
Just put an extra number or letter, whatever you'd like. Yeah, just make one up. It's your numbers. You can do it however you want. But I like to put those on my property list, and also along with some registered mail receipts. And that is a practice that I've done for a long time. We've been doing it for a long time that way. And we'll talk more about the registered mail receipts. But this letter is simply, and it's only to be used if you mail your act of state in. Other than that, don't do this form. You might want to write that down. I know it's already on there, but just make a note of it, highlight it, or do something, because I get questions about that. Okay, the next form that we have is called an affidavit of political status and attachments. We ran into places where the clerks would not file our freedom documents. They just wouldn't do it. So we found that they had to file affidavits, which was common for them to do that. And so what we did is we did a cover sheet for those areas where they'll do this, and I don't know that they all will, but when you find a clerk that just hesitates or resists, if that's what you want to do, you can take and add this cover sheet. This should be right after the legal notice and demand part. It's not in there? Oh, no. Well, it's on your disc, and just pay attention to the screen. I'm sorry. Right. If they do the online filing, they won't need it. This is just an option. This form is not necessary to even do. But we found that sometimes it came in handy when we went down to a clerk and tried to file our documents, and they gave us a hassle. And so we started putting the affidavit cover, and we found a lot of them went right through. And that's just something that you might want to consider. But this is not something that you would do other than that. You don't do that form unless you need it. It's just as simple. You put an affidavit statement on there that this is an affidavit of political status and includes all the attachments herein. Okay, the next document we have is called an act of state. And this is just a notification or a declaration of political status as well. The Act of State is important because it is supported by the Treaty de la Haye on October 5th, 1961. And the United States is a signatory of that treaty. That means they guarantee to uphold your sovereign rights and protect those rights. You think they might have violated another treaty? The United States has never kept a treaty since they've been in existence, I don't think. And so we're just reinforcing that we know that they're supposed to uphold our rights, our basic rights, and we're going to enforce that at some point. So we're letting them know that. Now, this could be a very important form because since there are many signatories to this treaty, in the past, the Americans have had to call on foreign armies actually to protect us and help us. France has, how many times has France come to our aid? At least 3 that I know of in major wars in this nation. The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and the French and Indian War. I think maybe even the War of 1812, maybe. I think 1812 too. So I know at least 3 or 4 times France has come to our aid. So don't be too hard on France because they've saved our bacon several times and helped us in a lot of ways. So these folks that are talking bad about France ought to think back about what they've done for us in the past. But they really have helped the American Republic many, many times and the American people and sent their troops over here to help support what we were doing, our efforts. There may be a time in the future that we have to call on foreign troops as well to our aid. This act of state actually gives us the status to do that. And so we don't know now at this point where the republic is going to be led. We don't know exactly where it's going to end up. We know that we're going to try our best to put it in place, and I believe we will succeed. Might be done through a struggle, though. But if we don't make the struggle and we fail, you have no future, and your children and grandchildren certainly don't have a future. So we've got to make a stand. Now, you can read this document. It's just a declaration of your political status, and it gets taken to the Secretary of State for an apostille. There's a lot of myths about what an apostille is and what an apostille does. An apostille is just a certification that the notary that saw you sign the document is a valid notary. The importance of that is that it gives you the power to take this into a foreign court. Okay? The United States is foreign. The United States Corporation, their courts are foreign to us as secured party creditors. So that means when we apostille a document, then we have the right to bring that into the court for evidence. So that's an important thing. It's a very important thing. Now there's some Secretary of States out there that will not do an apostille. They just don't do them. And so find a state that does. The state of Alabama does them all day long. If you've got $5, they'll do an apostille. They'll do as many as you like. They don't give you any problem over it, at least at this point. But I do think that in the future, a lot of states are going to start bucking on this and not wanting to do them. But I think it's an important document to have. I have one, and we also like to send that in to a copy of this into all the agencies and put it on public record. Now, how many here are interested in filing their documents online with Denise instead of going to the county? Okay, good. I think you should. It'll save you money and a lot of hassle. It's a great way to do it. Now, what you need to do is you need to do an affidavit in the county that you live in stating where these documents, the name of the documents, and where they're filed, and give the address, because you're doing public notice so that they can go look at the documents if they want to do that. They probably never will, but it will give them the opportunity. Notification is very, very important in law. It means that we've given them the opportunity to do the right thing. Whether they do or not is not up to us. But we've given them the opportunity. And so that's all we're required to do. So if we notify the local county clerk and file an affidavit into the public record that these documents are on file at this location by this number and how to get a hold of them, then that's all we have to do. That's their job to look them up and do the appropriate thing. Not our job to make them do it. We can't make them do it. We can make them wish they had, but we can't make them do it. So just be aware of that. But notifying these people is very, very important. Very important.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Wilson.
Okay, we've had a very hard time filing those records in New York City, New York State. And what we did is we went to the Secretary of State to file it under UCC 3. Mm-hmm. They took it without a problem. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that's good enough for...
That's public record, yes.
It's public record, but we don't have to file it with the local clerk again, do we?
No, but I would still file a notification.
The affidavit?
Affidavit notifying them where it's filed.
Okay.
In public record. That makes them responsible for it.
Thank you.
So all we're required to do by law is notify these people. We don't have to make them do the job. We just got to notify them. Now, when we notify them that these documents are on file, then they should review these documents and act appropriately. They probably won't, but it doesn't matter. They've been notified, and now they're legally responsible for the documents. Are there any questions on anything that we've done in the freedom documents that you have a question about, would like to come up and ask? In the freedom document sections. That's the last document in there. And if you have a question, if you will, write it down and pass it over and let Denise read them to us, and we'll get it all on camera. Okay, one of the myths about the apostille is that if you post it on your door, law enforcement will not come in. Wrong. It does not work that way. An apostille has no authority other than it gives you a certification that the document was signed in front of a competent notary, and you do have the authority to take that into a foreign court and file it.
Should the legal notice and demand be filed in my home county?
I like for it to be filed in the home county, but as long as it's on public record, it doesn't matter. I like that because I can make my local sheriff responsible real good. I like to do that. Local courts. If you have problems in your local courts, I highly recommend that you do it. But if it's on public record, it's on public record.
How does the notice of lien come into play against mortgages and placed before filling out the paperwork?
If you have a mortgage lien already, your lien will take second place. It will not be first in line, first in time. But that's the way it works. However, if you ever go into a foreclosure situation, I'm going to show you tomorrow what to do about that. You can lift the lien anytime you want to. If you discharge the other lien, you can lift your lien if you like on the property. But I wouldn't do that. I'd keep it on there from now on because it protects it from anybody that wants to bother you. There's no value. There's no reason to go after you.
The question is, if you filed your freedom papers and recording them in the county, do you have a need to record them again online?
No. One-time filing is plenty.
That's right. One thing, if I can clarify something in what Tim said, when you get your notification back from me, I give you the web address. Like the county gives you a LIBOR number or a document number, I give you a web address that is you and your documents and will never change. Okay, that is your document filed online. So everywhere, when you file your paperwork, if you will plug that in, and I have an example that I'm going to give to you tomorrow that shows a county filing versus an online filing. Okay, so regardless of the way you do it, you can see. In my case, mine are filed with my website location, www.nationalrepublicregistry.com/public/TX, because I live in Texas. If you live in Missouri, it'll be MO. .2009 for the year. .04 for April. .01 for the first day of April 2009. A file number. So that is unique to Denise Stevens. Okay, yours will be unique to you. Okay, hope I cleared that up. Okay, Tim, if you have a vehicle but are still paying on the loan, should you add it to the property list before you own the title and have paid it off?
Sure. Why not?
Do these documents need filed or recorded, and is the distinction important?
There are some distinctions between the two. Actually, we are recording documents as the proper term, not filing. Filing refers to cases, and I use the term interchangeably, probably incorrectly sometimes, so forgive me. But actually, we are recording documents, not filing documents. That is the correct terminology, but I'm from Alabama, so don't expect much.
Should you have a security agreement with your minor children's straw men?
You're talking on the property list?
Should you have a security agreement with your minor children's straw men? Whoever asked the question, do you want to clarify what you're saying? If you will, come up here to the microphone. Come to the mic, please. We'll move to the next one, Tim. Does the notary date on the power of attorney need to be prior to the UCC-1 filing date?
It should be after.
Exactly.
Should be after the UCC-1 filing date.
Yep. UCC-1 is the first thing. Can anyone here give us success stories?
I'll talk. I'm sorry?
Can anyone here give us success stories?
About what?
Successfully filing their paperwork? Absolutely. There's probably, I'll just ask for a show of hands regarding the filing of the paperwork from your Arlington class and any other class that you've attended to, and you're a secure party creditor.
Quite a few. Is that what the question was referencing?
Is that, did I, if you, if,
Promissory notes and things like that to get out of debt.
discharging debt, offsetting, using the offset bond.
Go ahead.
Come up here.
Yeah, we have a number of success stories. Quite a few.
I tendered a bonded promissory note to my state for state tax revenues. I did a BC bond, I did an indemnity and offset bond, and I did a bonded promissory note for the actual $10,000 state tax liability that they wanted me to pay for income taxes when I hadn't even filed an income tax return for the years that they were looking for on the federal level. So I just sent them a cover letter, a power of attorney for the revenue officer, and a bonded promissory note behind to offset the debt. They did.
No?
Now, I didn't get confirmation back from the state that they honored it, but when I called in several weeks later and asked them, what was the balance on this account, gave them my SSN, and they said it's zero. So they're not going to give you evidence that they use it because they don't want you out there passing that around for the most part.
Occasionally they do, but sometimes they don't.
But in this case, they just balanced it to zero, and I haven't heard from them. That was 2 years ago. Kentucky.
In Kentucky. Yeah, we've had numerous stories of people. When I was in Phoenix a couple of days before I came up here, got a call over there where we were staying, and a guy said, "Just wanted to call and let you know my mortgage was discharged today. Just got a receipt." And that makes you feel good.
Short. On the question about a security agreement with the children, I was wondering if you should have one of those on your property list in case you ever have trouble, like I know you had trouble with.
I put his own in, is what I did. I
Okay.
put his own documents just like mine, put them in public record.
Yeah.
So you were talking
The
about.
problem with that is you can't enter into agreements with minors. They don't have
Okay.
the legal authority to make agreements.
Okay. You had said put your children on there, and I was wondering if you needed a security agreement with their strong
you don't
man in
need.
order to do that.
Remember, you don't need permission. You're a secured party.
Okay.
I was of the understanding with my son is I gave him the right to do those
Well,
things,
you
and I
can.
stated that in public record also for them to say something back
could
about it, and they
probably do
never
that.
did. And that's what I did.
And that might be very legitimate that way, maybe. But as a rule, minors can't enter into contracts on
Right.
their own.
Well, I knew that, and I talked to my banker, and he said as long as I give him power of attorney basically for
Well,
that,
that's
he
fine.
said it was, because he said he could open a bank account,
Yeah.
so he didn't see any reason why I couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's true. With your power of attorney, he can, yeah. But minor children are not allowed to enter into contracts on their own like that. Okay? You have to be to enter into a legal contract. You've got to be of legal age in your state, of sound mind, and we're not even going there. No, this group, no way. We're not even going to attempt to identify what that means.
Is the state/clerk under the same obligations to apostille documents just as they are to file documents?
So, like the Secretary of State, not to my knowledge, apostille is not something that is, as far as I know, is a requirement.
And you're absolutely right. According to my experience, Tim, they have, just like Randy was saying, they have received some edict down from the state secretary's office in Washington that gives them a piece of paper that if you can get your hands on it, you're better than me. They hold it about this far away from me to show me. I couldn't hold it in my own hands and read it. But it basically says that a prior case, like Randy had mentioned, has been uncovered that that these documents don't have to be filed. The apostille does not have to be filed. So like you said, you may have to go to
As far
another
as I know,
state.
there's no law that requires them to do
No,
that.
not a law. It's not a law.
Yes, please, if you don't mind,
You
you
bet.
maybe clear that up.
I took this this document to the Secretary of State, and they didn't like the verbiage in the document, so they refused to give me the apostille, so I called the DPS. And while I'm waiting for the DPS to show up, they brought me a CFR. And what it said was that if the document did not meet their policy, that they could refuse to apostille it. And then in the same CFR, it defined their policy. And their policy was not to apostille a document that could be used by a foreign government to avoid import or export excise taxes.
Okay.
And I was surprised. I didn't think it applied. But that was what they used, and it was absolutely nonsense. And I stood on the position that while you may not be required to provide the apostille, if you do provide the apostille to someone, you must provide the apostille to me. You can't selectively decide who you want to provide it for and who you don't. And we're going to have a big fight over that.
Good, we're going to win too. Yeah, my new catchphrase is when I get these things from these courts and stuff, I send them back and tell them this is unintelligible legal gibberish. That's what I tell them. Yeah.
Last one.
Okay.
And then finally, what is the impact of the Freedom Docs on, number one, future Medicare, number two, wills, trusts, instruments, and at brokerages? Investments at brokerages and future Social Security payments.
Don't know that there's any impact on any of it, but I'm aware of all of your things that you're transacting business with through the straw man, and you're not changing that. You're still going to operate through the straw man like you always have. You've just taken your position as a real man. He doesn't conduct business. You conduct business for him as his authorized representative now. Yes, David?
Yeah, I knew the guy that wrote this act of state.
Yeah, okay.
It does the same thing, the 12-page document you said. If you read it very carefully, it does all those things. It's a political statement of who you are.
That's right.
I have sent it to the Secretary of State to be authenticated. I got a letter back that says the document is self-authenticating for the country in which it's intended. Now, I intended mine to the United States because I'm foreign to the United States, and if you read it correctly, I'm a citizen of the Republic of whatever state that you live in.
Right, correct.
Okay, it does have some teeth to it. When you apostille it, I took mine to the county recorder and recorded it. That put it into public notice.
I did the same.
My original one has got a stamp from the Northwest District Court of the state of Arkansas.
Right.
That makes it a public document.
Yes, it does.
It has some teeth in there. If you take away any of my listed properties, life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, you get the privilege of paying me $10 million in silver coin.
I like that.
Not only you, but all those in concert there too. Now, I'm in trouble with George Bush because George Bush has a presidential obligation under this document to enforce that. He didn't like it. He sent his thugs after us.
Oh, yeah.
But the guy that wrote it put the United States into commercial bankruptcy. Rubin resigned when he presented it. He helped a friend of his put the state of Oklahoma, put a commercial lien on them of $80 million, and they shut down for 2 weeks. They're negotiating, have been for 3 or 4 years, about how much they're really going to pay.
I wonder what they're going to do when I put that $36.8 billion on Houston County.
I don't know. Probably run and hide.
Probably.
But this can be a very powerful document. There's one little statement in here that I like down there about, after the state and thing, it says for the peace and safety of all corporate officers, etc., as well as myself. What's the opposite of peace and safety? If they come against you when you have this document, they're committing an act of war
Absolutely.
against you.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So if you understand this document, it's a very, very powerful document.
Yes, it is.
If you want a sign to keep them off your property, I got one that kept the FBI off and the DOJ people off my property for 3 days. They arrested me after I came off my property. But they sat out at my front gate, not in my front gate, they were parked down the road, but I wasted 3 days of their time before they came to get me.
Well, shoot, you should have posted it on your chest and on your back.
I got one on my car now. But they told me I was lucky. They didn't do it like they normally do, is come kick my door down in the middle of the night. And I says, well, we don't know who's lucky. Maybe I was lucky, maybe you were lucky. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. The active state is a very good document, I think, and that's the reason we put it in our lineup. Okay. We're going to get into Section 2 now. Section 2 is real easy. This is so easy. You chimpanzees out there could do this. Okay, Section 2 is what we call or refer to as our financial documents. And the financial documents are just a series of instructions to the Treasury that basically tell them that we want to participate in this process and that we're going to file documents and we're going to send presentments to be discharged, and we want them to do that for us. Now, we're only going to charge our accounts for $100 billion. I mean, that's not much, I know, but you just have, if you need more, you can do it again later. But if you need more than $100 billion, you're greedy. The bottom line is that we have the right to do discharges of debt through this system according to law. And we're notifying them of that. And that's what these orders are. Now, you'll notice a couple of things. You can read these on your own. You're adults, and I'm not going to read them to you. But the BC registered mail number, where do you get that from? That's the registered mail number you use to mail your birth certificate bond. Make a note of that, please. Okay? Now, this is just a set of instructions, as I said, and when you're dealing with the Treasury, it's a bank. You got to think of this. There's a lot of crazy theories going on out here. The Treasury is a bank. And you've got to treat it just like a bank. You've got to give them instructions, tell them what to do. It's like dealing with a computer. If a computer gets garbage in, what does it get? Garbage out. So if you don't put the right commands in, you're not going to get the function out of the computer that you're asking for. You've got to request properly, and that's what we're doing with these different forms that we're here. We're letting them know that we know the rules of engagement and we know what we're supposed to do, and we expect them to do their job. Okay? If you can fill these documents out very easily. If you can write in Social Security without dashes, this is your BC bond number. Now on your BC bond number, let's go ahead and clear that up right now. The BC bond number is the registered mail number that you send it with is the BC bond number, but only on that bond. The reason we did that is we wanted a registered mail number that is registered in international commerce to help establish our account. That's a reference number. And that number is internationally registered. Okay. The Treasury routing number is the number on the back of your Social Security card. That is a location code, is what it is, of where the funds are held. Your account number is a social with no dashes, and this is your address. Now, these are where we send copies to, and we'll do that when we do our mailings that we talk about. But this is just basically tells them that we want to charge back our accounts and discharge, zero the accounts. Okay, the next document we have is what we call our cover letter. It's a pre-offset balance book adjustment letter. And this is just, and I'll read this to you because this is an important letter that I drafted for me and some other folks drafted. I didn't do it by myself. But there's some numbers up here we need to look at first. Okay, this is where you address it. Now, I think Donna's working on a generic address system where you can just do it once. We'll get that squared away, but this is addressed to the agencies on the mailing list at this point, and from the principal secured party. Now, does everybody know what a principal is? That's you. You are the principal, the one that's creating the instruments. You are the principal. Okay. This is the date you file it. You're filing the document. This is your UCC file number. What number does that represent?
The number the county gives you back when you file, or
No, the state gives you back. Right. That is the file number from your UCC1. So if you don't know that, you might want to make a note of that. And it's for the debtor, all capital letter name, and your account number, social with no dashes, social security with dashes, and treasury routing number and LIBOR number. And what is the LIBOR number? That is the file number you receive when you record your freedom documents. Wherever you record them, that file number is your LIBOR number. The treasury routing number is the number on the back of your Social Security card, and it is a location code is what it is for the place where your funds are held. Okay, and I'm going to read this to you. It sheds a little bit of light, and I'm going to reformat this letter at some point because we've learned a lot more about law since I've done this, and I've not had time to really get in there and tweak it the way I want it, but it gets the point across. Dear gentlemen, the enclosed statute staple securities instruments are rendered to you for the purpose of balanced book adjustment as legal tender to lower and reduce the United States national debt. The undersigned understands the complexity of following this procedure. The code is effectively in place to save and protect the monetary system of this country. If and when non-accreditation occurs, the economy and monetary system of the country will certainly collapse. This is the complexity and importance of honoring this procedure. United States Code Title 12, Chapter 12, under the heading National Banks, authorizes the procedure. If you don't understand this procedure, please research the U.S. Code for clarity or seek competent legal counsel, as if there was such. You should understand that in Title 12, United States Code, Section 371B12, the code defines exposure to include all extensions of credit, regardless of name and description. This procedure is intended for all people of the United States. Non-accreditation will result in serious error and injury against the Internal Revenue Service and the principal secured party creditor. This will cause a miscalculation upon the Federal Reserve account balance book and will require a filing of the proper IRS forms for collection of these funds. This adjustment may be completed by Mr. Timothy F. Geithner, Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, who is my legally appointed fiduciary agent, or my designee as fiduciary on IRS Form 56. Documentation is enclosed. As you are well aware, lawful money no longer exists in our economic system. This was replaced by Federal Reserve notes, which is in effect a promissory note. This procedure to allow offset of debt is the proper legal remedy that has been provided for us to discharge debt since the money was removed by the U.S. corporate government. This is a debt obligation of the United States. Please use this procedure to offset any bills that I present by balance book adjustment, settlement in full, discharge of all presentments, and return all interest to the principal. Mr. Timothy F. Geithner, or my designated fiduciary agent, is authorized to adjust from this account, along with any reasonable and lawful interest, penalties, and extra fees as needed in order to satisfy this procedure. This may be ledgered against the account number indicated as best suits the needs of the U.S. Treasury. It's just a little overview that we know the game. That's what we're telling them. We know the game, and we want to play. And that's what we're telling them. Now, any questions about that letter? About anything? Yes, Denise? No, you may not. Go ahead.
Will you make the document go up just a little bit? Because at the top of this is where the notation is made. On up at the top where you're putting in all the debtor information and all that. Right there. Where he has LIBOR numbers, that's where you'll have LIBOR numbers. If you file at the county, if you file on the website, you're going to have the URL, the www.national, the information that I gave you. So it's going on file to all 18 agencies where your information is going.
That's correct. Okay. That's notification. Okay. Now, why is a LIBOR number important? No, why is the LIBOR number important to put on our documents? Well, that's one thing. Well, the reason we listed on our documents, well, it's stamped on the documents, original filings. But we listed in several places on our documents and on these financial documents particularly because we discovered that when we started getting paid receipts back from the Internal Revenue Service, it referenced those numbers. And so they're important for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but if it's important to the IRS, I figured it might be good to put it on our document. And that's the reason I did that. Any other questions about this document? Questions, comments, confessions to major crimes? Yes, all of the latest documents will be on the disk, yes. Okay, the next document we're going to see is our fiduciary appointment form, we call it. And this is styled after a court case, but it is not a court hearing. It's not asking for it. But this is a commercial appointment, okay, for fiduciary. Now, there are a lot of people out that are talking about the Form 56 being a fiduciary appointment. The IRS Form 56 is not a fiduciary appointment. It is a notice that there has been a fiduciary appointment. You need to get understanding of notices are not the actual documents. So like notices of liens are not liens unless it is stated that it is a lien. Notices of liens are not liens. The lien is the lien. The notice of lien is just notifying you that there is a lien. Okay? And this is the reason we do a commercial appointment contract, or a fiduciary appointment contract, because we want to make the appointment and then we will do the notification, which is the IRS Form 56. So we do it in two parts process here. Now, we do this for 3 different individuals. We do it for Timothy Geithner, Secretary of Treasury. And we do it for Eric Thorson, who is the Commissioner, Inspector General, and who is is there a new commissioner yet of the IRS, or is it still Schulman? Still Schulman, okay. I'm not sure. They change it up so fast I can't keep up week by week if they're changing. And I don't know how long Mr. Geithner is going to be there, honestly, but we do use 3 of these, and we do 3 of these appointments and 3 Form 56s as well. And we'll talk to you a little more about that in a few minutes about what we do with the 56s when we discharge debt. Okay? But this is just a simple contract. Pay attention to the highlights. John Lee Doe, upper lowercase, means your real man's name. If it's an all uppercase, that means a straw man name. Just like applies throughout all the other documents. Okay? Now, on this particular document, we use a right thumbprint. Why do we do that? Back years ago, Treasury agents used to come out and talk to people to verify they were the ones doing the documents. And would come out and fingerprint them. So we save them the trouble. We put our fingerprint on there, and then they can check and make sure that's us that are actually filing the documents. Saves them trouble. We try to make everything as easy as we can for our friends. We want to make it work out, where they don't have to get up and actually do something. It takes away from their donut time, and we wouldn't want to do that. We'll make their job as easy as we can. Okay, so then that's the right thumbprint. If you don't have a right thumbprint, put your left thumbprint and then put left thumbprint. And I had one class, what if you don't have any thumbs? I said, make up something. I said, I don't care what you put on there. He said, can you put your cheek prints on there? I said, which cheeks? And he was talking about the wrong ones. I said, you can do anything you want, but you might not like it. What happens? But anyway, we get some real doozies in these meetings. So this is the real man's signature for the all capital letter name. Now, need to make a note of this right here. We changed this up, Denise. Denise is busy. Make a note of this is going to the straw man. No, I apologize. No, we changed it back because we did put the real man's address in there. I apologize. Just had one of those moments. We did put the John Lee Davis. We used to have it in there where we had it going to the straw man to the real man's address, but we changed it. We did get that changed. Okay. Any questions about the fiduciary appointment contract? Now, what does the fiduciary appointment contract do? That's a question we should cover probably. It gives them the responsibility to take care of your presentments when you send them and zero the debt. Zero the account. We're ordering these guys to zero the account, and we'll show you why that's important to remember that fact. This is just a certificate of service. This goes to, actually this guy has been, you need to, on this CC right here, you need to make a note of that. That's Eric Thorson now. Earth to Denise, Earth to Denise. That's supposed to be Eric Thorson. S-O-N. Yes, Brother Morris?
On this power of attorney, giving the fiduciary responsibility. Also, what I did on mine, I put in there that I was hereby authorizing them to make any and all necessary changes to make this compliance a lawful compliance.
That's a good point.
And that way, I mean, how could they say that they're getting you for fraud if you're delegating them the opportunity to have the fiduciary, but you are authorizing them to make any and all necessary changes to bring this into lawful compliance?
That's a good statement. We probably should add that. I like that.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I think I'll put that in there too.
In which document?
You mind if I copyright you? I mean, copy you? Plagiarize you? Yeah, that would be a good place. We just need to find a place in there to put it anywhere. You can add it right at the last paragraph at the end of it if you like. Okay. Any other questions, comments, confessions of crimes, or Eric Thorson, E-R-I-C-Thorson. He replaced J. Russell George.
still up there. He's the IG in the tax department.
Yeah, he made a job change, though. I think so. He did. Okay, but Thorson was put in there. I guess he's still there. There's so many changes going on in Washington. Okay. Okay, you have 3 of these formatted for your convenience. They're already formatted for you. All you have to do is do your personal information. And they all get mailed, and we'll talk about mailing and filing in a little while. Because you've got 3 of them on the disk. Okay. Okay. As I said before, the Form 56 is just simply a notice that a fiduciary has been appointed. This is the IRS form that we use to do that. This has an OMB number, and this is a very simple form. One thing that is taught improperly out here, and I've seen this done before, is that some people are telling people to put their Social Security here where it says decedent's Social Security number. Don't do that. That's for dead entities. We don't want to kill the straw man. We want him to be alive and well in commerce. So don't put it there. Put it right here where you see it. This is a straw man form. You put his all capital letter name and address here, and you will need to correct that, Denise, right here. It's where it says J. Russell George. We need to put Thorson right there. The address stays the same and the title. And the title of this is an appointment of fiduciary debtor and creditor. And it's pretty well formatted for you. A couple of things on the second page you do want to know. Okay. If you're involved in a court case, dealing with a court issue, what I would do was fill in Part 5. And I would put the information for the court here. That will give your fiduciary your permission, express permission to discharge a debt in relation to that court case. Could be a very important thing. You're giving him your authority to do that. In Part 6, we do not sign here. We sign here as authorized representative. Right here, you just appointed the fiduciary, and we don't want to sign for him. Actually, a friend of mine called me, it's been a couple of months ago now, and said that they actually got one back signed, but that's the only one I ever heard of. Never saw them come back. But we sign them here and not here. Because we're appointing a fiduciary and we're not accepting the responsibility. Any questions about that? Okay. All right.
For each of the fiduciary forms, there's a certificate of service there
Yes,
that be notarized. Since you're sending that in with a package with the notary presentment, which will be notarizing all of those things, is it necessary to do those separately as well?
Yes.
It is.
Because they can be separated and sent to different departments.
All right.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Any other questions about this form? I doubt it.
Put them all 3.
I didn't know what
Wouldn't do that, okay.
well, I was just messing with you. What is your question?
Oh, okay, on the appointment form, I put them all 3 in line and just sent the 1 in.
I don't know, but
Don't
I
know.
don't do it that
Wouldn't-
way. I mean,
okay,
it might be possible, but I don't do it because they have different addresses, actually.
Yes, sir. Regarding the court and administrative proceedings for
Yes.
you in Part 5, could you actually explain one more time for me, please, how this can actually pay the discharge the debt, please?
Okay, you would want to put the name of the court here,
Mhm.
and if you have the date of the court hearing, date it began, first proceeding initiated, the address of the court, and if you have a docket number or case number, I would put that there, and the date and the time. And if you have additional proceedings pending, you can just write that in there. If you don't have it, just say pending.
So what you would need to do is get the total value of the discharge.
Yes, we would, but what this does is I would send this in to the court, notifying them that Mr. Geithner has been appointed as my fiduciary when we send payment.
Oh, great.
Or
Okay,
send
thank
the discharge in. It's the way we do it, and I'll show you about that. We'll look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Wilson, you have a question?
Did you say before that we still use the certificate of service for each Form 56?
No, not for 56, for the fiduciary appointment.
Right. And we do have to use that. I thought I thought you canceled that.
Now, that was on something else, I believe, if I remember correctly. I think that was in the actual and constructive notice package.
Donna, do you? The question is with regards to the Form 56 and the fiduciary of appointment of fiduciary. We are. I thought I was on the impression that I saw on the website that was canceled. We do not use the certificate of service anymore.
Okay, we'll talk about that and see what we do. I'll ask Donna what we're going to. We've got some things changing going on, and I'll let you know. See what we're going to do. Possibly we might be. We're reworking these documents, and so there may be some changes on the newspaper.
Yeah, like Tim said, guys, you have to understand, these are living documents. Like Tim said, when changes come around, we have no problem with making changes. This next question is kind of along those same things. Why, when we address our documents to Timothy Geithner, J. Russell George, Douglas Shulman, and various people, why do they not operate in commerce or government using their straw man, which is the uppercase name?
They do. We do. That's one of the changes we just made.
They do. You have to understand that a lot of people have helped Tim build these documents. So when you, am I right, Tim?
Yeah, these living documents.
These
are
living
killing me.
documents. So instead of, I might encourage you, instead of finding fault, bring a solution, because nobody is trying to intentionally oversee anything, okay? This man works very hard. I work very closely with him to help him. There's a lot of us that pull together as a team to make them perfect. And you know what? With a team, we'll get there one day, okay?
Well, and we had them really close, and I got a hold of an individual that decided they wanted to help, and in the process, they sabotaged me instead of helping me. That just happened a couple of weeks ago, and we're still recovering from that, so y'all be patient with us.
It will be fixed by tomorrow morning when they get their CD.
When you get your CD, the corrections will be made tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing to me what people will do. They did it intentionally, and they did it out of, well, there was a reason for it why they did it. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, so when we get the disc, we're reformatting it now, and it's been a job, and you'll get the new disc with all of these corrections that we have already made before that got deleted and changed, and it just drives me nuts. I could have strangled somebody the day I found out about it. And I would have enjoyed it too. My favorite 1040V. This is an IRS form 1040V from our friends at the IRS. You'll notice this is an 07 form. You can get an updated one from the internet. I guess I'm going to have to break down and do that eventually. But this is what's known as a payment voucher by the IRS. A couple of things you want to know about this form. And you're going to need to make some notes because this is a very important little voucher. When you go to discharge a debt, all IRS wants to see is evidence of the exchange. They know there's no money. They know there is no such thing. If I went down there and I went to my friendly IRS office and I went down there to pay an IRS debt and I paid it with these right here, what is that? It's a note, but it's evidence of the exchange. It means I can show them. They can show something that made the transfer, made the change there. Okay? Well, when I go down with a bonded promissory note, I do the same thing along with the bill. But this is the form that the IRS likes to use to do those transfers. Okay? This is what they call their voucher. It's like a check. And they use this for evidence of the exchange. Now, there's a couple of little things on this form that you need to know, and I want you to pay very close attention. This little details, a couple of details on this form can make the difference between a debt being discharged and it not being discharged. That's how important this form is. When I send in payment or an instrument to discharge a debt, payment is the wrong word, discharge, I send a payment voucher with the transaction. Okay, we're going to talk about in detail after a while how we do that. I fill out the information, which is the Social Security number and the principal's all capital letter name of the straw man of the principal, and the address. Where it says right here, leave blank, it means to leave it blank. Don't leave the leave blank in there. Leave it blank. I've had several people send them in with the leave blank in there. I'm not joking. Not joking. I'm not honest. I'm serious as a heart attack. Please leave it blank. Take the leave blank out. Okay. Now the reason we do that is don't put an amount in there is because if I send a presentment or present we call it, I get a present from the bank. It says you need to pay off your mortgage or your mortgage you owe $361,112.52 on your mortgage. And if I take that and I accept that for value, on both sides, by the way, which is required, with the accepted for value stamp, we're going to show you about that too. And we take that and we send that in to discharge the payment with a note. And we send this 1040V and we fill out that amount, $360,112.42 in the amount right here. And it goes through the process and they get it 6 or 8 weeks later and they process it and they go to discharge the debt. What's going to happen? It's not the same amount. Because when they get the payoff for that debt, interest or payments or something has changed the amount. It changes by the day. Every day it changes. So unless you can calculate what day they're going to get it and what the amount's going to be to the penny, then you're tying their hands if you put an amount in there. Because if you give them the orders that we do to zero the debt, and you leave that blank, they can get the payoff and write the exact amount to the penny to discharge and zero that account. Now, does that make sense to you? Yes. Okay. That's why we leave it blank. And they do. They do this all the time. We get receipts quite often. That one on that Bank of America thing I showed you yesterday, it's exactly how we did that. And it was discharged in 3 weeks. But she didn't get the receipt for 3 or 4 months. I think it was 4 months. Okay. Now on the back of this, if you would turn this over on the back, on the coupon part where it says below this dotted line right here, I don't detach it. I send the whole page. Okay. The reason I do is because when you put all your paperwork together, it holds it in place better. They know how to, they can take a pair of scissors and whack that off. If they want to discharge, they will. Okay, but on the back of this, on this end, on the back side, opposite the amount, just like a check, I endorse it with the accepted for value stamp. And endorse it with my signature and date and social security number and all that kind of good stuff. Now, if you'll look in the back, on the back cover of your book, just inside the back cover, you'll see the stamps. That's the language. You can have stamps made, or you can write it in there with a pen, or you can do whatever you want to do. The little accepted for value stamp that you'll see on your book there, the small one. You've got two. Those are all the same stamps, by the way. The big one has two of them. One is filled in, one is not, and the little one is the same way. It's filled. One's filled in, one is blank, and one is filled in. Shows you what to put there. But the small accepted for value stamp stamps on the back side of this, opposite the amount, just like you endorse a check. Okay? Right. And that's the way we do this form. Any questions about that form? It's very important. Okay. Everybody got? Yes, ma'am. No, you can't put without recourse on this stuff because you have no recourse. This has to be. Listen up, folks. You can't use not without recourse on this paperwork. If you do, they won't honor it. As a secured party creditor, you have full liability, no limited liability. That means you have full liability. When you write a note to these people, it has to say on it, this is an unconditional promise to pay. If you put a conditional acceptance, they're not going to accept it. And there's a lot of people teaching conditional acceptances out there. The law says, I know there are, the law says it has to be unconditional. That's a guaranteed payment. Conditional means there might be stipulations attached to it. Now, I read the law. I don't know about where everybody else got it, but it says in the law it's got to be an unconditional promise to pay. You can't do a conditional acceptance on an unconditional promise to pay. That's my opinion. You can take $2 and go get a cup of coffee at the convenience store with it. But my opinion came out of the law, so. There's a lot of things out there I see taught that scared me. Let me tell y'all something else that goes on out here that you might not be aware of. You have what are known as disinformation agents out there that work for the government, work for the corporation. They put stuff out there intentionally to confuse you and to stop you and keep you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish. They do it intentionally. And they do it under the guise that they're in the Patriot movement. Got one out there that was a lawyer that I won't call his name. But in my opinion, the man's an idiot. I'm not going to get into who he is, but if I called his name, most of you would know it. But the things he says is absolutely is for disinformation purposes. He's made a lot of them. I got into a disagreement through email with him one time. He said, the United States is not incorporated. I said, oh, really? And I called him back and said, well, it's a corporation. It is incorporated. So we emailed back. And finally, I sent him an email, and this was coming through a third party. And finally, the guy said, well, he's a lawyer. He should know. I said, well, he's an idiot as far as I'm concerned because I don't know very much. I said, so I scanned and faxed him a copy of the Articles of Incorporation for Washington, for the United States, right out of Delaware. They're recorded in Delaware. You can get a copy of them. I've got a copy in my office. So I scanned and faxed. I didn't hear any more on that one. But you got people out there that are talking trash that either they don't understand it, they're totally brain dead, or either they're out there trying to cause disinformation. A lot of that goes on. So be careful what you run after. There's one guy out there scares me. He's got a wonderful website. Now, I know the guy personally. And I told him he's going to jail, and he's going to jail. But he's got a wonderful website, looks good, sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but there's a few little fatal flaws in his process that's going to get you put in jail if you do it. He's the one that got my friend's house sold listening to it. And I told him, I said, don't listen to this guy. He's telling you wrong. But he's got this beautiful website. And it's just insane what people come up with. It doesn't matter what kind of website it looks like. If the content is not good and you can't justify it in the law, leave it alone. Yes?
Would you mind sharing what the few fatal flaws are so we can prevent that from happening?
Yeah, the biggest one is purchasing with these instruments.
What about the website?
The website, I can't give you that. I wouldn't do that. I'll give it to you in private, but not on camera. But the bottom line is you got to be careful what you listen to out there. I don't get my stuff from the internet. I get it from the law books. I get it from the law because for years I didn't know there was anybody else doing this. I thought I was all by myself. I thought I was the only nutcase out here. I really did. I didn't think there was anybody else. And then I met this guy down in Florida. His name is Max Campbell. And me and Max became buddies. And he came into my auto shop one day, and he got to talking about some things, and I was listening carefully. And I asked him a couple of questions, found out, hey, he knew. And man, I was excited because I found somebody else that was crazy as I was. And so we got to talking and found out there was other people crazy as we were. And then we got to studying together, and he came up with some stuff I even thought he was crazy. But later on, I found out that the old guy knew a lot, and he was very knowledgeable, and we started studying together and learned. This is back many years ago, and we learned a lot together. Fought a lot of battles together. We had a lot of fun, too. Literally, when me and him would go into court, the deputies that were around the courthouse for security would come in and sit back on the back row just to watch what we would do next. It was entertaining to them. I'd go in the courthouse security and say, what you going to do to that judge today, kid? He was pretty cool. And I said, well, we're going to have some fun. You want to sit in? He said, yeah, I'm going to be there. Wouldn't miss this. I remember one day I carried a bucket of dirt to court. I had this tyrant of a judge. He was terrible. And I carried this little, you seen these little Ace Hardware pails, the little silver ones you mix paint in? One day I got me one of them. And I filled it full of dirt, and I came walking in there through the security, and Officer Cooper looked at me. He was a good friend of mine. He said, what you going to do to him today? I said, we're going to have a little fun. So he said, what's the dirt for? I said, you just watch and see. So we walked into the court and set the little pail down there. He called her name and went up and set it on the table up there. And the judge just had to ask, what's that? I said, this bucket of dirt. Why on earth would you bring a bucket of dirt to court? I said, well, Your Honor, it's like this. It's really simple. I said, you've been telling me that you were God all these months I've been coming before your court. And I said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to prove it. I said, the scripture, the Bible says that God made a man out of the dust of the earth. And I brought you some, and I want to see you create him. If you can create a man, a living, breathing man, that can stand up and talk and walk around and communicate with us, I said, I'll accept your offer that you're God. I said, or you can make a world, just a small one will do. Boy, that old boy, he got a little bit red in the face that day. One day he told me, he said, open your mouth one more time, I'm going to throw you in jail. I said, well, I said, tell you the truth, Your Honor, I said, I didn't call him Your Honor, I called him Judge. I said, tell you the truth, Judge, I said, I really need a vacation. I said, my cousin is the sheriff, and this was true. My cousin is the sheriff. My brother is the chief investigator for the sheriff's department. I said, and my nephew is the head jailer. I said, I'll probably be treated really well. I said, I need a vacation, so I want some time just to read a novel. I said, so please. He wouldn't throw me in jail. So he decided not to do that. Okay. The next document we have is called our Non-Negotiable International Bill of Exchange. This is the only bill of exchange that I use. This bill of exchange was written by Steve Beto, the guy I told you trains the lawyers at the Court of International Trade. The guy's pretty sharp. He knows his business, and he's very, very knowledgeable in these matters. And so this bill of exchange is just what we call a charging document. It goes along with all the rest as a charging document to create your account and charge it and set it up for use. And like I say, I'm not going to read these to you. You can read them on your own. What is the BC registered mail number? Birth certificate, bond, registered mail number. Can we clarify that some way? I think there's a lot of people ask me that question. Okay, this is the date of that you do the document, and that's the BC registered mail number. And this is just a very simple thing. And like I say, it's only $100 billion, so if that's not enough, you're greedy.
Do you send out each presentment or just one time? Do you send it once or each presentment?
What's that now?
That document.
No, this is a one-time deal.
Okay, I asked,
This,
do we
this
send
is
it
only
once?
sent one time.
Okay.
Ask the question again so they know what it was.
Is it?
Just the question.
No, it's a billion. That's $100 billion. That's $100 billion, unless. Okay, if it is, it's a misprint. Okay, make sure, well, on the disc it'll be $100 billion. If there's a discrepancy in the book between the book and this, then we corrected it on the disc. We will get it all fixed up eventually, I guess, if I live long enough.
What I asked was, do we send that document once or do we send it each presentment? And he said one time.
Just one time is all. And we'll talk about all of that. Okay? You fill in the real man's name, and this is a signature, full legal signature. What color ink? Blue. Why you use blue ink? Because it's pretty. Because it denotes a wet ink signature. Okay. Now this is kind of messed up here somehow, but this is supposed to say invoice number. We've got that corrected though. And this is just, and make up a number. Doesn't matter what it is, just put a number in there. Just write that down. Make your number. Put your number in there. This is a tracking number for this document.
Non-negotiable international bill of exchange.
The invoice number is just the number you make up. It's, okay. Any questions about that? If you will, please go to the mic.
No, I just want suggesting, can they put numbers, a number on these pages? So this one?
Yes, we will. They just want to know if we can number the book, and I think if you can do that, I would appreciate that. When we get it squared away, we will number it. If we can figure out how to do that. Okay? Okay, let's take a break for about 15 minutes.